welcome, pizza, and politics. So I am Heidi Graham, and I am the president of the local League of Women Voters. We cover Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, Buffalo Grove, Elk Grove Village, Prospect Heights, and Wheeling. 6 times fast. Okay, so what we're doing today is that we're going to have a mock club meeting. This particular club format has worked for us at our league at both the middle school level and the high school level, okay? So I may stop occasionally, I may rush you occasionally, but this particular format is meant for about a 45-minute time period, okay? Because you're gonna do this, like I said, pizza and politics during lunch. After the first class, after the first club, which is what I'm showing you here today, you really hand this over to the kids. You show up and you act as guidance, but this club should belong to the kids that are there. Go around the room and just quickly say your name and what issue interests you.
I'm Lucy. Lucy Nisi, and I'm a freshman, and I'm interested in a lot of activism. I'm interested in environmental rights and women's rights.
I'm Ashley Garrison. I'm a junior, and I'm interested in gun control.
I'm Molly McDermott, I'm a sophomore in college. I'm interested in gun control. I'm Erin McDermott. I'm a fresh junior. in high school, and I'm interested in women's rights.
I'm Josie Kaskowski. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm interested in environmental rights.
I'm Regan Graham. I'm a junior, and I'm interested in women's rights in the workplace.
I'm Jimmy McDermott. I'm a junior in college, and I'm interested in educational policy reform.
I'm Patrick. I'm a sophomore in college. I'm interested in the police and their relationship with their constituents.
The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna do a listening exercise, okay? So, all right, so you guys are together, right? So, easy. So what we're gonna do is you think about something you love. It doesn't have to be what you just said, it doesn't have to be the environment, it could be your dog. Like I could talk all day about my rescue greyhound, okay? She's super cute, Sloan. Follow her on Pause for Votes on Instagram. I can talk about her all day, right? But what you're gonna do is you and your partner, one of you is gonna be the person to start. You're gonna talk for 1 minute on that topic. The other person is not going to say a word. You have to talk for the whole minute though. And then I'll give you a time, and then you're gonna quickly tell the person what you heard, and then you're gonna switch. Stop that. Okay, so why do you think I had you guys do this exercise? And you absolutely make sure you ask this question. Why this exercise? Yes?
Learn how to listen to other people's points of view.
Listen, other points of view. Yes.
You have the opportunity to figure out how to pull the main points out of other people's arguments and to listen for what they're putting emphasis on.
Right. Now, why did I say you couldn't say anything while you were listening? Jimmy?
Forces you to focus specifically on what they're saying as opposed to like what you want to say in response.
Right. Is anybody here admittedly a bad listener? I'm the worst. I'm the worst. While you're talking to me, I'm thinking, oh, I've got the greatest story. I can't wait to and I can share my story, right? Most of us do that. So listening is a skill, and it is one that needs to be practiced. So that's something I want you guys to start thinking about. The other thing is that when you ask questions or make comments as somebody is speaking to you, you begin to direct the conversation in the way you want it to go, not the way they want it to go, okay? So if we're talking about these difficult conversations around things like gun violence prevention, or the environment, or women's health care, or issues, we have to be able to listen first. Two of you used a term that I then switched. You called it gun control, I call it gun violence prevention. Why? What I know is that that's a hot topic. And the minute I say gun control to someone who believes strongly in the Second Amendment, I have shut them down. I am never going to get them to listen to another word I say. But if I focus on saying gun violence prevention, a lot harder to argue with. That's one of the things as league members that we can do is we can help these kids navigate these difficult conversations in a way that is productive. So we're going to do what's called an identity chart. So first what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you kind of work through a sample one. Here's my little pregnant snowman. Okay? All right, so, scene. What do you see about me? What do you automatically know about me just within, you don't even know me, you just walked in the door. What do you know about me? I'm a woman, so, and I will say the unseen thing could be that I maybe identify as a man. That's not the truth here, but that could be, all right? What else do you see about me? Yes?
You're a woman voter. You've got the button on you.
I'm a voter. I love to vote. I've got a button right out. What else, Patrick?
Got a sick blazer on.
All right. Right? So, but this might tell you the fact that I'm dressed this way, I'm in this situation. It might tell you that I'm college educated. Might not, but it could, right? What else?
You're white.
I'm white. I am white. I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm white. I'm also old. Right? I mean, you know, you look at me, you know, I know, I look at you and I go, you're high school, maybe college, right? These are things we know about you right away, okay? And maybe if I had my wedding ring, you would know that I was married, right? Most likely, you're gonna look at me and assume that I'm a mom, am I right? Yeah, I got the mom hair, I got There's so much about a person that we see, so when we're having a conversation, we automatically know. But what do we not see? What are things that you wouldn't know, okay? Unless you knew me, you would not know that when I was your age, I struggled with depression to the point that I tried to kill myself, okay? So that, I talk about it very openly now because I want to normalize the conversation around mental health. Now somebody else might have had that same exact experience, might be my age, but may not ever really want another person to know that. Their unseen is going to stay their unseen. Another thing, and this explains so much about me, but you don't know it until I tell you, I'm a military brat. Okay? So there's tons of things about me that you will never know until I told you. And there's lots that you know about me just by looking at it. So what I want you to do is I want you to get out that little notebook that I gave you and your pen. And I want you to do your own little identity chart. You've got a couple minutes to do that. Why do you think we just did this exercise?
It makes you think about how like other people could have things you don't know about them.
It happened to me recently where, so one of my unseen things is my best friend happens to identify as queer. And so LGBTQ issues, super important to me. Super important. I don't know how this guy, like, started having a conversation with me about how, I mean, it was the most homophobic conversation that I found myself in. And it was super uncomfortable, but I was also in a position where I didn't feel like I could correct the guy, right? It wasn't, I also didn't feel safe enough to correct him. So here we are. So we want to be aware that we all have things that we might not see, but we're also trying to create a safe environment to have these conversations where we can also make mistakes. But what are the rules that you guys want to have with your club?
Maintain a positive and safe environment for everyone.
Okay, so we want to be positive. And that might mean maybe when somebody says something that I say, you know, I really appreciate that you are interested in gun control, but can we maybe try to use the term gun violence prevention? Hopefully that makes you feel as if you have heard and appreciated, but then we get to using terms that are a little bit more balanced.
I would say if somebody shares something personal, it doesn't leave the group, or it's, you know, just become a talking point outside of the context.
Like no judgment.
No judgment, that's a tough one, and we're gonna try.
There should be some sort of guidelines for like just loosely not trying to interrupt each other while people are in the middle of their thoughts.
Interrupting, we're gonna put no, but we know that we're also human, right?
Obviously knowing you're all there for a similar reason, like working towards change or being more educated on.
Mm-hmm. So being educated. And this, do we have more, or we feel like this is kind of covered? Yes.
What I was gonna say, no attacking someone personally, just talking about what we're trying to talk about.
No personal attacks. So what are we going to talk about? You already know, you've already said that environment was an issue, gun violence prevention, GVP. What else? Oh, women's issues. Education, police. These were all things I heard, yes?
Like incarceration, for-profit prisons, stuff like that.
The justice system. What about, is there anything in the school, is there any issue at school that you feel like needs to be talked about?
Well, I'm at a university campus, but like women, equality, college sports.
Oh. And I bring this up because this actually happened in a club that we did. A group, they were focused on the dress code that they felt was unfair towards the young women of the school. And in the end, what we did for the entire year that I went, and I think I went to, you're not gonna go, you know, you're not going, you know, it's not 12 meetings that you're going to. If you're lucky, you're gonna do 6 meetings in a school year, maybe 7. What we did over the course of those 6 or 7 meetings, those girls absolutely line by line rewrote the school dress code. And in the end, the last meeting, they presented it to the school leadership team and it was implemented. So that was, they literally took a piece of legislation that impacted their lives and rewrote it. What did you guys think? Yeah. Any questions about anything we did that you think, yeah?
Well, just like in the general discussion, do you aim more towards the theoretical, the like going over facts, thinking about opinions, looking at different angles, or is it more of a practicality or like action-based discussion?
Again, each club would have its own personality. So I get, for instance, the one club at the high school level, they were interested in gun violence prevention. That was number one. Number one, that was the first club meeting. It was so near a major high school shooting that we were having this discussion that I expected to go in and hear these kids say, we want this law and that law. I mean, that's what I was expecting. What I heard was, we're not really interested in any more laws about guns. What we want to see is we want more mental health support. And then I asked, this was one, you know, again, it was the where I asked one question. I said, how many of you have even ever been to a licensed clinical social worker or a therapist of any kind? And I think I raised my hand. I'd already said in my intro that I'd struggled with depression. I raised my hand. I think maybe one person raised their hand. And I said, have you ever thought about what a difference it would make if before kindergarten before middle school, before high school, you had to have a checkup with someone, a mental health checkup, the same way you had to have a physical. That seemed to be more appealing to them than any more laws about guns. Now, there probably are some laws about guns that I think they probably would have been able to get behind, but there were a couple kids in the class who were very much support, they were Second Amendment, right? So it was a very interesting conversation. But they did not go the direction I thought they were gonna go. And it was, I was doing a little, but there's this law, but there's, but there's this, but it's letting them work this out in a safe environment. They don't get this very often. They're in their classes, they have great teachers, but the teacher has an agenda, obviously, right? And they don't get to have this kind of discussion very often in their lives. So, anything else? Yes.
How did this spill over to more involvement with the league, like after the fact?
Oh, did it develop into people becoming more involved with league after the fact? Yes. We did get some, I think of that, I think 2 people became members. But for me, that's not the goal. The goal is to give them skills to have difficult conversations and to understand that it can happen. I grew up in a house where we couldn't talk about politics and ever disagree and then not hate each other. And I want to be in a world where I can disagree with you and then still think you're the most awesome person in the world and still want to hang out with you. That's what I want.
So nobody facilitates the meeting. Like, you could have 1 or 2 people run away with the conversation and other people don't get a chance. No, there's no.
We had our rules at the beginning, right?
So you might.
Non-interrupting.
So if somebody's going off, you might draw attention to the rules. You as a little.
Yes.
Okay.
They're because when you start this way, that's the whole point of starting this way. That you have 1 session that's dedicated to how do we start? How do we do this? These kids they're respectful kids. And you have to remember, these are kids who are self-selecting to come to such a club, right? They're not being forced to come, they're self-selecting to come. And so they want to have these conversations. But no, I did not have that where anybody ran away.
How big a group?
I don't think you want it more than 15. All of my groups have been 10 or under.
Have you had to tell some people no?
No,
Because you didn't agree?
no. I think that at the high school level, the middle school level, we had a hard time getting them to come, right? And then once we did get them to come, it was a very small but dedicated group. At the high school level, he had a sign up, and I think there were probably 15 on the very first day, and then after that it dropped down to about 10. And they were always the same then. They were excited, and then at the end of it, they were like, well, I hope you do this next year, right? But it's one of those things that'll start building, it'll have some momentum.
And did you need a teacher?
Yes,
Teacher sponsor?
yes, you need a
Did they
teacher's,
be there?
yes,
Was that hard?
no, it was not. And that's one of the things that at our league, I do, is I help make that relationship and make sure that happens. Because until you get a teacher, this isn't gonna work, right? I do think you need somebody in the building who knows the building, who knows the kids better than you do, that will be the facilitator.
So the chicken and the egg, did you bring this to the school and say, I have this idea, do you want to try it out if any kids are interested? Or
Yes.
Did the school say, hey, we've got a bunch of kids interested in a civics club? So, okay.
Yeah, I went to them, and one of the things I did, there's a group in Chicago, it's called Facing History and Ourselves, and it is a teacher training organization. And last summer, I attended 2 workshops that were designed for teachers about how to have discussion around difficult conversations, and that was how I came up with this format. So I didn't, you know, I did some training myself and thinking about how this would best work. And I also have a background in education. It was a very long time ago, but a long time ago I was a teacher. So, yes.
So they listed all these issues, so, and then you said you had them rank them, so they come back week 2, and that's when you learn that environment is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you brought materials, I mean, does it make sense? So then, in the next week, would you discuss a different issue?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Unless, like the case of the middle school, where we worked on that, I mean, it was drilling down that dress code.
That's all you did the whole year?
That was all we did the whole year, because we were line by line discussing it. I mean, we literally have one meeting over 2 lines of the dress code. And how do you rewrite this to be fair, that doesn't, and equitable, that doesn't affect the educational environment?
So for instance, environment comes up number 1, so you discuss that in meeting 2. So then at the end of meeting 2, do you say, okay, so number 2 rank was the justice system. Do you want to go on to that next week, or do you want to stay on environment a little longer?
Yes, you could do that. You can.
And would you have somebody, I asked for a volunteer to bring in some basic 5 or 10 minutes information to the meeting?
I think that I would keep that with the adults, because you want to be able to vet that before you show it.
Okay.
Now, if you want to get that from them in advance, but see, you shouldn't be contacting these kids with their email or a cell phone or anything outside of the club. That should be just the teacher,
Okay.
because then you put yourself and the league in
Right.
a sort of a precarious situation.
Right, okay.
What did you say about the YouTube? Could you repeat that?
Oh, so there's a million YouTube videos, and the teacher I worked with, he was really great about finding short YouTube videos that were very balanced, that we could show to kind of kick off the discussion. I don't know, because we also did immigration. And the other thing is, you could also offer to bring in a guest speaker. We have lots of resources at League for guest speakers. That would then require a little bit more planning, and then that, of course, takes away the time that the kids are able to just kind of talk out how they think and feel on the issue. But it might be good for once. Like, we're talking about at the high school level, the high school that I've been doing this club with at Rolling Meadows, we're talking about bringing in an actual elected official to talk about the challenges of being elected as a woman. So, and then the one club, they were interested in, I mean, I actually took a group with a parent drove them, I didn't drive a single one of them, but I escorted them to Springfield and had meetings with all their reps. And they got to go and be on the floor, and they were acknowledged on the House floor and the Senate floor. They got to go into a committee meeting and see what a committee meeting was all about. And these kids, this is something they wanted to do. They had to get up and be at school at 6 a.m. to make it happen on their day off. So they want to do this, but we have to give, it's giving them the format, giving them the opportunity. And I know not every volunteer is going to be willing to go to Springfield. That's something, it's a goal of League to be able to say, District 25, we have a bus, we're going to take it to Springfield. District 214, we have a bus, we're going to take it to Springfield. That's a goal. That's a goal. But I think it's a great goal. And apparently our League did it 20 years ago. Yes.
So there's a teacher in the room too who is not saying anything during the meeting, but is a resource for later?
He might say, I know, he's kind of interjecting occasionally,
Okay.
right? And again, each one has its own little personality. So I can that's why I say, this is how you run the first meeting. The only thing that looks pretty much the same is this first meeting. And then it takes on a little life of its own, which is great. I think, yes.
How did you organize the Springfield field trip? Like, what went into that?
So, because I can't drive them, I'm not a parent, I had to get a parent willing to drive. And so getting a parent who's able to, willing to drive other kids and take a day off of work was a challenge. But I did. We found a parent who was willing to do it. And then because I have relationships with all of the reps in our area, I was just easily able to make a phone call, say, I'm coming with a group of kids. When can I bring them to your office? They said, be in my office at 10 a.m. We were there. They had a private one-on-one conversation, well, group of kids. And then I had arranged for them to go to a committee meeting. There was a meeting about a bill on mental health, and that way they could see how that kind of piece of politics works. And then I was actually asked to give testimony on behalf of someone who wasn't there, so they got to see that. And then we went on the Senate floor, and they were acknowledged. Then we went on the House floor, they were acknowledged. Then we ran around the city, and I mean, they had a really, really good time. So, oh yeah, that's right, Lucy.
And then, can I just?
Yes.
I think it was really great because even though you might have, like, at my age, you might have this sort of like preliminary experience with politics, where you hear the big stories, and maybe your one-on-one experience is either your local city or your local town, or then it like blows up to the big national stuff that you don't really have a personal experience with. Being able to go somewhere where you can see it happening, that's not like on a screen, where you can see like people's reactions real time. It was just it felt more real than the other stuff, which always can feel a little bit theatrical.
Right.
So I think that was very interesting and sort of made it seem more like the possibilities of moving forward and different issues were possible, especially for normal for a teenager.
Right. And I thought one of the things I thought was great was that our representatives, Ann Gillespie and Mark Walker, they kind of explained to the kids all the different jobs that were, that I had never even thought of, that are involved in politics. So you're interested in economics. Well, we have somebody that's, they're paid when it comes time to write the legislation to help with the economics of this bill. I just thought it was very interesting, and great. Anything else? And then, again, you're giving them some swag. You tell them you look forward to the next one. Typically speaking, you don't even know when the next one is going to be. You kind of have to, you're just in contact with your teacher about when it's going to work. You try to make a plan at the beginning of the year, and then you have to be a little flexible because things happen. Teachers get sick, or they get called into meetings, or they change the schedule, or they have a lockdown, or, so you just have to be flexible. But, they enjoy this and they want this, and I think it's a worthy endeavor.